Welcome to the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast, powered by StatRoute.com. And now, here's your host, Ryan Skullroot.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. I am not alone tonight.
You're alive.
Justin, you're alive. I've got my brother Justin, who, to be completely honest, is one of the main reasons that we still even have a podcast or even started a podcast for SkullKing Football.
We still got one because we're good, but we started one because of me.
Yeah,
We'll
and Justin was the one that really pushed me to do this, and so I'm very appreciative of him, and I'm glad that he is back on the show tonight. So
Yes.
Here's last night's show. Yesterday's show, I went over my guys, 5 of the guys that I really liked for this next season. I wanted as many shares of as I could get. Tonight we've got a couple little things we're going to discuss, do some news and notes, and then we are going to go over our don't touch this.
Avoid like the plague.
Avoid like the plague. I wish I could have Hammer Time playing in the background as we do. Don't touch this. Okay. Anyways, so that's what we're doing tonight. So we've got a few players apiece that we are avoiding pretty much at all costs in the drafts coming up for 2019. So for real quick, so again, if you're watching the podcast here on YouTube, you will see that again we have our kind of little note thing here to sign up for our NFL Pick'em contest on playbalto.com. I'm not sure. I have to look. I think you can actually go into Playbalto and search for specific pools. If not, you can find our little post about it on our Facebook page, on our Facebook discussion group, on our Twitter account, on my personal Twitter account. We've got it in a whole bunch of groups all over the place. So, again, go to SkullKing Football on Facebook, and you should be able to find the link to join our NFL Pick'em contest for this year. The winner at the end of the season will get a signed Marcus Peters jersey. So,
Officially JSA certified as well.
Thank you so much.
It's not me with a Sharpie writing Marcus Peters on the jersey.
Yeah,
it is official.
It is official and authenticated. So, so there's that. Continue to, if you have not had your draft yet, make sure again to go to SkullKingFootball.com. Go to the store page and buy our draft guide to help you prepare for this season's draft. You can get it for $5 for the PDF. $10 for the web version that has some extra articles and strategy stuff as well. One more thing, I believe if you follow us on Sleeper, on the Sleeper app, we are doing our listener league this year on Sleeper, 16-team Superflex league. This is going to be absolutely intense. The draft is
it's where the big boys play. 12 bench spots. 12 bench spots and a super flex.
It's a super flex with 12 bench spots, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. I believe, is it 2 flexes and a super flex, or is it 3 flexes and a super flex?
It's 2 flexes and a super flex. So technically 3 flexes.
3 flex positions. One can be a super flex.
Quarterback.
1 tight end, no kickers. I believe we're still doing team defenses and an IDP. With 12 bench spots. There's going to be no one left on the waiver wire once this draft is over. 24 rounds.
Ronald Jones has a chance of getting drafted.
He may
zing.
No. Ronald Jones has a shot at being a mid-round pick in this draft. That's how deep this draft is going to be. So
when you go 24 rounds, sure, he could be a mid-round.
He could be a
mid-6. I don't know. It's going to be long.
I think so, yeah. But let me actually pull it up in Sleeper real quick. I believe that Mad Dog, Aaron Kagan, who's one of our quarterback writers and who's running the league this year, has actually posted in our channel that you can actually watch, I believe, our draft unfold. So I've got to
maybe we host it. Maybe we both hop on and we kind of talk through our draft tomorrow.
I won't be able to do that because it's during dinner. So it's well, we start the draft. I think the draft starts around the time that I take dinner to my wife at work. So
have fun with that.
So
you're the first pick. You get to pick like every 30 minutes.
With 2 minutes per pick, I'll be picking every hour practically. I'll get to pick and then take two, and an hour later take 2 picks, and we still may be halfway through it when I can, hop on to the podcast and start
drafting at
looking
3
at
a.m. the 12th round.
so yeah, it should be a whole lot of fun. And so that's what we're doing. Let me make sure real quick. Yep. So I believe that's it. So that is all that we have for the announcements. I'm very happy to have the first round, the number 1 pick again this year for the second year in a row in the Listener League.
Anything for you last year, so
I finished 4th. Well, that's just because I was a little overconfident in David Johnson. And yeah, I mean, it didn't cost me the league. Honestly, I still wouldn't have finished. I still wouldn't have finished well because David Gurley crapped out, right before the fantasy playoffs. Anyways, so
yeah.
Gurley. I still had a first round bye in the playoffs, so it wouldn't have mattered either way.
Yeah.
All right. So now that we've gone through all of that, why don't we go ahead and get into today's headlines?
Today's headlines.
All right. To start it off, Texans pass rush. We're going to get into a little bit of defense here because it's going to affect fantasy relevance for some players on offense. Texans pass rusher Jadaveon Clowney planned to report this week until he found out the team wanted to trade him. Not only that, he fired his agent today. I don't know if he has a new agent yet. I'd have to look. But he fired his agent today because he felt that talks were not progressing quickly enough. And now you've got the possible trade news. And the two teams, or the team that has been connected to him as a possible trade candidate, is the Miami Dolphins. And Justin, you said you had a couple things on that real quick.
Well, what's been reported is that it could be Kenyon Drake and Kenny Stills as possible trade baits in a potential deal for a sign and trade with Houston because, as we all know, and I know harshly, that Lamar Miller just went down on his first touch in preseason. I don't know if this is going to have much traction from a Houston side. There's already been rumors about Kenny Stills, who's the wide receiver involved in this, potentially being cut anyway. Why would they trade for a guy who's going to be cut that they could re-sign for whatever they want?
Because they don't know for sure if he's actually going to get cut.
True. But if this is a deal that's going to happen with Miami, I don't see it happening for until like September 5th when the season starts. I mean, it takes Stills to get past the cut. And they're going to need to move on it quick if they want Clowney to know some defensive plays. And Houston's going to want Kenyon Drake to get up to speed and Kenny Stills to get up to speed because they need to replace Lamar Miller and Kiki Kuti for the first couple of games as he rehabs from his injury. So I think this one has more legs than the Seahawk piece, which you'll get to here right now.
Yeah, so the other rumors that have been around is that the two teams that that Jadaveon Clowney would like to go to that feel that he would have the best spot with is the Seattle Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles, I believe. And one of the thoughts that was thrown, I don't know if it was put out by an actual writer or if it was just a fan speculating, how would Seahawks feel if they decided to trade Penny to the Texans to get Jadaveon Clowney? I thought it was
Seahawks fan says no.
Yeah, basically. And a lot of them said no. Some of them said, well, if you can get Jadaveon Clowney and make sure that he's actually going to sign, that's a possibility because you're getting a top shelf pass rush when for right now, we have a pretty loaded running back core, and Travis Homer could step into that Rashad Penny role. So, but okay, that's enough of that. And I mean, as far as the Philadelphia Eagles go, I mean, they have a bunch of running backs that they could send that way. I think Corey Clement was the main guy that was suggested in that piece. So, it's definitely something to watch. The trade rumors, the trade winds are still blowing a little bit here and there. So, Kyle Shanahan said it's unlikely that wide receiver Trent Taylor will be available for Week 1. The only reason I mention this is it could mean that, well, right above that, Jalen Hurd is also questionable for Week 1. So, all the words, all the rumors saying that Dante Pettis has to earn his starting spot. Who else is going to start? I mean, he is the healthy wide receiver. It's him and George Kittle are the only guys that are healthy and can receive the ball. Deebo Samuel is the only other one. So, Seahawks have yet to rule out DK Metcalf for Week 1. And with David Moore being injured and not necessarily, I mean, they're going to keep him on the 53-man roster. They're not going to put him on, they're not going to, put him to the practice squad or anything. They're not going to put him on the PUP or anything. I think that's huge if DK can play Week 1. No thoughts, Justin?
I'm a heavy Lockett owner. I think that is the thing that I'll say. Metcalf is a rookie wide receiver. I would like to see him play as much as possible. The offense is going to be heavily predicated on the run and then play action pass. He's a deep threat, but he's a rookie with a full season ahead of us. Let's not rush him back to get him to play. I think holding him out, unless he's 110 or at least 100, I'd sit him out, and you've got other options. I don't think you need DK Metcalf to beat Cincinnati Week 1.
No, but I would like to have him in there to play Week 1. I think he is a great body to have playing opposite Tyler Lockett. So,
yes.
Minor scare at Eagles practice. Wide receiver DeSean Jackson suffered a broken ring finger on his left hand in workout. Understanding is that he's not expected to miss time, and they're not concerned about it. Like it's not something that's really going to hurt him much. I still like him as a deep sleeper to kind of be that deep threat for the Eagles this year. And so just only reason we really mention this because he's going to be kind of that sleeper. I think that he could put a lot of points up in the first few weeks and could be used as trade bait to someone. So.
Yes.
Texans are not hopeful that Keke Coutee will be ready for the opener. The reason I mention this is because I think that opens up even more work for Duke Johnson. Because Duke Johnson can play in the slot, we're talking about a guy who just 2 years ago, I believe, was he was a running back 13 or 15 in PPR leagues.
Yes. RB2.
Great. He's a phenomenal pass catcher. Before last season, he was the number one receiving running back in terms of numbers of receptions for the first 4 years of his career. He led the entire NFL, all the NFL running backs in terms of receptions. The guy can get it done receiving. He's not going to have the heavy load that some people are expecting because he's the number one running back right now. So, because of Coutee being out, I think that opens up a little more work for Duke Johnson.
The thing that I'll say there is it only opens up for Duke Johnson if they move him to the slot position.
True.
The history of the last 5 years, and this is why I've been a little hesitant on Duke Johnson since going to Houston. I liked him more at Cleveland, ironically enough, because they know him and they utilized him, or they would utilize him. My nervousness with Houston is that over the last 5 years, they have thrown the least amount of passes to the running back position for a 5-year span. I don't think that changes with Duke Johnson. Because Bill O'Brien doesn't throw to the running back position as much as the rest of the league does. So great if Duke Johnson goes out to the slot. We know what Kiki got last year when he was healthy and playing. And so Duke Johnson, similar, quick slant, get him the ball in space, let him run type of a player, great. But if he's coming out of the backfield, he's not going to get a lot of catches.
Yeah. All right, let's one more thing here. Ron Rivera said that there is no doubt in my mind that Cam Newton will be ready for the season opener against the Rams. Newton had a good workout and threw the ball well. That's great for those who actually want to draft Cam Newton. I do not. So
I don't mind, especially in a 4-point passing touchdown league. He's almost a lock to be a top 5 quarterback because of his ability to. Top 5 for me, top 8 for you. Quarterback, if he can stay marginally healthy. I mean, he was more or less banged up last year and performed very, very well in 4-point touchdown passing leagues. So I'd go get him. The injury didn't scare me because he's played through injuries. And for those of you who watched the Amazon Prime piece on the Panthers from last season, the dude wants to play, and you're going to have to pull him off the field. And this is week 1. He was going to be ready.
All right, and one last thing on the Ezekiel Elliott hype train, or news train, whatever you want to call it. The question here is: can disgruntled star Ezekiel Elliott reach a compromise with the Dallas Cowboys before week 1? As of 17 hours ago, the quote was, "I don't think we're close because there hasn't been a lot of activity. Right now, I wouldn't say that I feel anything is imminent." So right now we are still just waiting. So for those,
I would say he is not playing week 1.
No,
he is not going to play week 1.
So if you can, if you've got Tony Pollard, fire him up. If you've drafted Ezekiel Elliott, you better have drafted Tony Pollard.
Yes.
If you did not draft Ezekiel Elliott and drafted Tony Pollard, good for you. You've been listening. So
very low risk, high reward.
Yep. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into our stories. We're going to try to get this done semi-quickly. But we can, why don't we go ahead and get it? We're going to get into our Don't Touch This section of the show. And so, Justin, why don't you go ahead and start off with your first guy?
My first guy, currently ADP, quarterback number 11, Kyler Murray. Now, as I came to this conclusion, I wanted to give you someone who was going to be drafted in the QB1 range, that's 12 and above, but not be the same guy everyone's been talking about in Pat Mahomes. Mother has said, don't draft Pat Mahomes in the first couple of rounds. Don't draft him as the first quarterback. Everyone's been saying that. I wanted to give a different perspective. So for me, the reasons why I am avoiding Kyler Murray are threefold. Number one, the Cardinals are implementing an entirely new offense. The air raid. This is a horrible idea. In college, I love watching college football on Saturday. The air raid is great. It's run by WSU, a home state team, does it very, very well. Cliff Kingsbury's coach, Mike Leach, runs it at WSU. It's great. When you don't have pro-level corners at every corner position, when you can exploit inferior players at the cornerback 3 or the cornerback 4, in dime, in nickel, in prevent, when you can run 5 receivers out there and you know that you've got elite talent at the wide receiver, because that's all that WSU drafts is receivers, you can exploit those matchups. Well, guess what? In the NFL, every freaking corner on that 53-man roster is a pro-level corner. You cannot exploit it the way you can in college. Number 2, The reason why I'm not taking Murray, Cliff Kingsbury. The dude was 35-40 as a college coach. Please explain to me how he has an NFL job. I think he can be a great coach. His first NFL job, based off his college career, should not be a head coach. Offensive coordinator, yes, not a head coach. So, head coach, brand new, rookie head coach, entirely new offensive system. And number 3, the Cardinals were 3-13 last year. You can't tell me that roster turns it around that quickly. The highest margin plus, or I read a stat that the highest a team can improve upon their last year, the highest number ever was 6+ wins. So take that as a 3-win team plus 6, you get a 9-win team. Kyler Murray, in order for me to take him at his current spot at 11, is going to need to have a better team than a 9-7 team out of the West. I don't see it. Too many variables, not enough consistency. There's enough problems for teams that implement a whole new offense anyway with an experienced quarterback. You have issues where you've got a brand new quarterback learning an entirely new system, but it's an established system. There's just too much working against them in Arizona for me to feel comfortable. I would rather grab Big Ben, Phillip Rivers, Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson, Jameis Winston, all taken either the pick ahead or the 4 picks behind. I would rather have all of those before I take Kyler Murray. And I wouldn't take Kyler Murray if all of those guys were gone. I'd still look deeper.
Yeah, for me, I could get into some of the issues that have been explained to me by I guess you could say a source that we have. Should we actually name the source?
Yes. We've got a source who is very knowledgeable,
very
of the
familiar
high school
and college football realm in the state of Texas. And so I'm sure he wouldn't care if we actually named him, but we're not going to name him.
I like having anonymous sources. It makes us feel more official.
Makes us feel some little higher up. Here's the deal. Our source knows and has dealt with not only the high school coach for Kyler Murray at quarterback, who Kyler Murray's dad played quarterback.
Yes.
And so Kyler Murray never listened to his, because we're getting this secondhand, never really listened to his coaches. When he went to Texas A&M, was that where he went? Texas A&M?
Kyler Murray?
Yeah.
Kyler Murray came from Oklahoma.
No. He originally went to Texas A&M.
Oh, yeah.
Had problems with the coach, didn't listen to the coach, kept going over, dealing with his dad, didn't want to listen to the coach. Coach said, "You're not going to start," so he transfers out. Goes to Oklahoma, and everyone was surprised in Oklahoma when he ends up having this great year behind Baker Mayfield. Even you listen to the interview that we had with the play-by-play guy for Oklahoma, he was surprised by the year they had. So we're talking about a guy that can, if the coach will, can deal with that and not necessarily have to have him listening to him all the time. Okay, maybe. Our source said, wait and listen for week 6, week 7, and wait to see if he starts saying, well, baseball's not off the table yet.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that Kyler Murray is known because he played at Oklahoma, and Baker Mayfield was the quarterback before. So everyone wants to see how does Oklahoma respond in the absence of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
And they played well.
Yep. All right. So I'm done beating the dead horse because I have gone off on Kyler Murray over and over and over again. So we're going to go ahead and go to my top player that I'm avoiding. Do not touch this, Amari Cooper. I've talked about this before. Justin's like, yes. I've talked about this before. I talked about this on the Sports Exchange, the sports radio program that I work with and I'm the fantasy analyst for. You look at what Amari Cooper did last year in 8 games with the, or is it 7 games, whatever, with the Raiders. Had an okay season, not great, but only had 2 games where he had over 75 yards. 2 games over 100 yards. He had 1 reception for 9, 2 for 17, 1 for 10, 0 for 0. Against Seattle. Got absolutely shut out in that Seattle-London game. Has only 2 games the entire season, or with Oakland of over 75 yards. Has only 2 games with the Cowboys over 76 yards. It just so happens in those 4 games combined, he has 116, 128, 180, and 217. In those 4 games, he had a combined 6 of his 7 touchdowns. 70%, 65% of his production comes in 4 games. You look at what he did in the fantasy playoffs. 4 for 32, 4 for 20, 5 for 31. That's not what I want on my fantasy team. I don't want that kind of back and forth. So I'm avoiding.
There's not much fourth there.
Well, there's a little bit of fourth. So I don't want that kind of. I mean, when he moved to Dallas, it was better for Dak Prescott's numbers than it was for Amari Cooper's numbers, because it provided an actual threat, quote unquote threat,
a target to throw to.
Well, not only just a target that someone had to focus on, so that he could actually hit other targets. You know,
when we're talking about Swaim as a tight end streamer in week 12 and 13 last year, that's a problem.
Yeah, but I mean that was because Amari Cooper was pulling extra coverage, so that
but that's the type of targets that he had last year before Amari Cooper came in. Now, the other thing that I'll say with Amari Cooper, before I get to my joke, Amari Cooper was doing that. He did that against the Chiefs. The Chiefs were a horrible defense last year. He exploded. So, of course, he had a great game against arguably the worst defense in the league last year. Now, what hurt the Chiefs' defense was the fact that their offense was putting up so many points, so they couldn't hardly catch their breath. But to me, and I said this to you earlier today, Amari Cooper is like the sparklier or fancier Devontae Parker. We keep waiting for the breakoutness to happen, and he's had flashes. Devontae Parker hasn't really had flashes, unless you're a Miami beat reporter. I just don't see the consistency. And for me, where Amari Cooper is being drafted, even if he were to fall around or 2, I just don't see Amari Cooper being able to return consistent value on that investment. And without Zeke, this offense is in serious trouble because the offense runs through him, and he won't be there week 1, arguably won't be there week 2. I'm with you. I'm not taking Amari Cooper at all.
But I want Tony Pollard.
Sure.
All right. So there's Amari Cooper. Justin, let's move on to your next one.
My next one may shock a few people, but obviously but running back position outside of the obvious of Zeke in the first round, Melvin Gordon altogether I would avoid because I don't think he plays until like week 10. I am not going to grab Le'Veon Bell. To me, what I don't get is how everyone has dropped Antonio Brown to the end of the second round, but we're keep the 7th pick in the first round. Do we forget that he didn't play at all last year? Have we not heard the reports that Ty Montgomery is going to get a little bit of a timeshare out of the gate so that Le'Veon Bell can get up to speed? That's not what you want to hear from your first pick in the draft. The other issue that I have is that they're going to face tough defenses to start. They start with the Bills, Browns, Patriots, Eagles, Cowboys, Patriots, Jaguars. Those are some tough defenses out of the gate. The Bills, the Patriots.
Don't underestimate the Bills. The Bills have had a solid defense.
Yes,
other than the first 2 weeks last year.
But look at the rest of these. We got the Browns, who's got a very dangerous front 4. The Patriots, who've got a solid defense, even with Pat Chung being indicted. And then the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Patriots, again, and then the Jaguars. The Jets haven't had a player rush for more than 850 yards in a season since Chris Ivory did it back in 2015. I don't see this offense doing that. And if you like Adam Gase, I don't see it. We saw him in Miami. I don't see it. The other issue
I liked Adam Gase when he was just an offensive coordinator and Peyton Manning was throwing. How's that?
Yeah, well, anyone would like it when Peyton Manning's throwing the ball, but he hasn't played for a full season. He hasn't played an entire season since 2014. Le'Veon Bell has had one full season under his belt in his career. He hasn't played in a full year. Why isn't he dropping further in drafts? I won't take him at all because I think it's too risky in the first round. If he were to drop to the second round, I still don't like him because he's too risky. There's no way he drops to the third round. I am going to walk away because there's too much inconsistency in terms of he hasn't played in a year. There is too much difficulty to start the year. Now I'm going to throw this little caveat here. Don't draft him, but look to trade for him maybe week 6 or 7 because he'll get through the gauntlet of his schedule. He'll be warmed up. You'll see what he can do, and then he'll have easier teams the rest of the way.
And people will be tired of having to deal with him.
People will be tired of having to deal with him. The team will be desperate because they're probably going to be 2-4 or 2-6, depending on when you get this trade in, and they're going to look to offload him. You can grab him for a little bit cheaper than you would as a first, and then you've got him during the easier part of the schedule the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one on avoiding Le'Veon Bell. And if you were to fall to the third, I might, depending on what the rest, my first couple picks were. But for the most part, I can't go into a season with my number one or number two or my number one running back having not played in 20 months. I can't do it, not having any game experience in 20 months. So even with how talented he is, you're also looking at the difference between playing with the Steelers' offensive line, which is, under Mike Munchak is one of the greatest offensive lines ever. I mean, they're just phenomenal every year. Going to the Jets' offensive line, that we don't know what they have. So I'm not going anywhere near that. So, all right, moving on. Derrick Henry, I am avoiding like the plague. Don't touch this. Again, my joke for the most part is that Amari Cooper is the wide receiver version of Derrick Henry. Let's look at what Derrick Henry did in 2018. Now, I understand that, people want to make the argument that he wasn't used as a bell cow in 2018. They didn't, use him as much as they should have. They kept splitting carries with Dion Lewis. He still had multiple games of 10, 11, 12 plus carries. He had 2 games of 18 carries where he finished with 56 and 57 yards in the beginning of the season. Then you look at what he did, go all the way through week 13, he has like 430 or I think it's like 430 rush yards. Then we hit week 14, first week of the fantasy playoffs, 17 carries, 238 yards, and 4 touchdowns. The next week, 33 carries for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then 21 carries for 64 yards and a touchdown in championship week. Then you even go into week 17, 16 carries for 93 yards. He had 60% of his yardage and half of his touchdowns come in the last 4 weeks of the season. I don't trust that kind of production to continue into this next year. If Marcus Mariota, one, is not healthy and cannot do anything on the offense, and if he's not healthy and Ryan Tannehill has to be the quarterback. Sorry, there is not enough quarterback consistency to pull 8-man boxes. He faced more 8-man boxes last year than anyone in the league, I believe. I'd have to go back and look at the next-gen stats. But he's in, if he's not number 1, he's in the top 5. 35% of his carries or something. Over a third of his carries were against 8-man stacked boxes. They're going to continue to do that because Marcus Mariota and Ryan Tannehill are the top 2 quarterbacks for the Tennessee Titans. So because of that, I am not going anywhere near Derrick Henry because I don't think he's going to provide the value, even in the third round where he's been going. I don't think he's going to provide the value that you're looking for at that position.
I'm gonna piggyback off of this, but I'm gonna change something here. I'm going to give an honorable mention of a guy that I am really down on, and I thought about having here as a do not touch. And you may think I'm crazy, but there's a correlation here. Who was the offensive coordinator last year for Derrick Henry?
Matt LaFleur, who's now the head coach in Green Bay.
So who's the lead running back right now at Green Bay?
Probably Aaron Jones.
Yeah, he is. I don't want Aaron Jones.
Nope.
Because if Matt LaFleur can't get a better, more talented running back in Derrick Henry
with a better offensive line,
to rush for any significance, what makes you think that he's going to do it at Lambeau Field for the Packers? I don't see it. Now, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but that still doesn't mean that I'm going to take Aaron Jones where he's currently being drafted. If he drops and other people are down on him, which his draft stock has slipped over the last couple of days, I think because other people see it, but I wasn't fully committed as a do not touch. I like Jamal Williams as a solid handcuff because you can get him and maybe it's your last pick or your 13th or 14th pick in a draft. And one slip up from Jones, and there's Jamal Williams. So that's my honorable mention. No slides. Sorry, tangent.
That's okay. Quick correction. Derrick Henry was 8th last year in facing 8-man boxes at 32%. The next guy that I'm going to talk about was 3rd with 35%. So,
okay.
All right. So, Justin, let's go ahead and get to your last don't touch this.
Yeah, my last don't touch this comes from the tight end position, and that's going to be Jared Cook. Now, some may say that Jared Cook's not a reach where he's currently being drafted. Let me pull that up on his current ADP status as I continue to talk through the rest of this. But since the induction of Alvin Kamara into the Saints offense, they just do not use the tight end position. Jared Cook's currently being drafted as the 7th tight end overall in a 12-man draft. He's being drafted in the 6th round as the 10th pick. But my issue is here's the stats from 2016 when Colby Fleener, who's another kind of disappointment based off the high expectations back in 2016 for what he could do. The team had 70 receptions from the tight end position, 50 from Fleener, 15 from Josh Hill, 5 from Josh Phillips. In 2017, Alvin Kamara's first year, the tight end position took a nosedive and got 44 receptions. Fleener had 22. Josh Hill had 16. And the Hawaiian, who I cannot pronounce his last name, Manawalani. Yeah.
Sure.
Had 6. Sure. Had 6. Last year, 2018, 41 receptions. It keeps going down. Watson had 35. Josh Hill had 16. If I was a betting man, I'd put Josh Hill at 15 or 16 receptions this year. Because the last 3 years, 15, 16, 16. But back to Cook. Cook has also only ever been a tight end once.
Last season.
That was last year. Can you name another Raiders wide receiver that is not named Jordy Nelson from last year?
Amari Cooper for the first half of the season.
Who finished with the Raiders? Smart ass.
No, not off the top of my head.
No one really of note. So it's almost Kittle argument, which we've spoken how Kittle's set for regression ad nauseum so far, but he was really the only target for Carr to consistently throw to. So now that there are many more options and Breeze isn't throwing to the tight end, what makes us think that Jared Cook, though he got a fat signing bonus, is going to return tight end 1 numbers? Unless they change their offense,
which they're not going to do.
Which they're not going to do because it's worked. I would much rather have Latavius Murray in this offense than Jared Cook.
Yep. Because
Latavius Murray is going to be a poor man's Mark Ingram from last year. He'll probably get about 75% of the production because he's probably going to get 75% of the workload that Ingram had last year. He's going to get some goal line targets. Sean Payton has said that Kamara is not going to get unleashed. He kind of chuckled at that. Like, he's not going to get infinitely more targets just because Ingram's gone. But Cook will not return tight end 7 value at his pick. I'm not touching him. The Saints haven't used tight end in years. Not going to happen.
Yeah, this kind of piggybacks off all the Kobe Fleener, hype from a couple years ago,
which I fell for.
Yeah, so did I.
And I might still be bitter. But we all make mistakes. We all make
mistakes, and we're willing to admit to those mistakes here on this podcast. Yeah, I'm with you. Just looking at the way that they play the offense, it's Michael Thomas, occasionally whoever their wide receiver 2 is, whether that's going to be Ted Ginn or whether Traquan Smith finally takes over the position, and then it's Alvin Kamara and whoever the running back 2 is.
Yep,
with a little bit of work to the tight end. So
with a little pepper to the tight end.
Yeah.
Get 3 or 4 targets a game.
All right. We've got one more person that we're going to cover tonight. That's me. And some people are going to expect this from a guy like me that typically, especially in PPR leagues, drafts 0 RB, drafts very wide receiver heavy in the beginning of drafts. So my last one is Leonard Fournette. And let's look at what Leonard Fournette has done the last couple of years. Again, let's go. We were talking about the next gen stats. Leonard Fournette last year was 3rd in the league in terms of facing 8-man boxes. 35% of all of his carries were against an 8-man box. Average time behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, it's awful. I mean, let's see. Actually, wasn't actually too bad compared to what it could have been. He was only behind the line of scrimmage 2.63 seconds. So I mean, he would get up to the line of scrimmage pretty well. It's just he couldn't get loose after that. You look at his average yards per carry, 3.3. He's never been above 4 yards a carry in his career. 3.7, I think, the year before in his rookie year. He missed 3 games in season 1. He missed 8 games last year. His hamstrings have been an issue since LSU. So this hamstring issue isn't anything new since he got to the NFL. It was a problem in college, too.
Yeah, he was the first, for those of you who follow college football, he was kind of the first to give the proverbial pass to the bowl game to go focus on the NFL career.
Yeah. So I'm not going anywhere near that. I mean, if you look at the ADP, going on Fantasy Football Calculator and the ADP, these are guys that I want that are going within 4 to 5 picks above and below. These are guys I would rather have than Leonard Fournette at that spot. Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, Damian Williams, Adam Thielen, and then Leonard Fournette going, pick 24. I'd rather have Kerryon Johnson, even though I'm a little more. I'm kind of shaky on his not only his ability to stay healthy, but also the fact that the Detroit Lions are god awful, and the Lions staff has even said they don't believe that he has the ability to be a 3-down back. That's why they brought in C.J. Anderson. Keenan Allen, I'd be willing to draft Pat Mahomes, a quarterback, early than take Leonard Fournette at the end of the 2nd round.
Would you rather have Chris Carson or Leonard Fournette?
Chris Carson in a heartbeat. I would rather have Chris Carson. And here's why. The Seahawks, this isn't, again, I know we're Seahawks fans. This is not a homer pick. This is, look at the stats. Chris Carson averages more yards per carry. Has a better offensive line-ish. I mean, the Jags have struggled with their offensive line just like the Seahawks have. Has a much better quarterback to be able to push, pull the 8-man boxes away. Has the most run-heavy offense in the league.
Yeah,
that's going to be force-fed. So,
would you rather have? I'm going to do this to you. Would you rather have Derrick Henry or Leonard Fournette?
I think that Derrick Henry can stay healthier, so I would probably say Derrick Henry in the 4th round than Leonard Fournette, who's going at the end of the 2nd.
Yeah, I would much rather have Derrick Henry at 3.11 or 4.1.
I'd much rather have I'd rather have Chris Carson. I'd rather have Josh Jacobs. I'd rather have I would draft David Montgomery at the end of the second round before I drafted Leonard Fournette.
Would you rather have Phillip Lindsay or Leonard Fournette?
Phillip Lindsay. Even with him splitting carries, his ability to get loose and to wiggle is so much more helpful than Leonard Fournette, who basically it's like running into a brick wall over and over again.
Yeah, and he's more one-dimensional than the others.
Correct.
He doesn't really get involved in the pass game, even though they've said in the offseason that they wanted to get him more touches in the pass game. I'll believe it when I see it. Now, Nick Foles brings some different things. Their wide receiver core is kind of taking a hit. D.D. Westbrook's a great grab late.
Good value pick.
Yeah, I would avoid Leonard Fournette. Injury reasons. I mean, injuries kind of are a common thread within our lists here, or they were what I would call a flash in the pan. Jared Cook 1 year as an RB1. Derrick Henry.
Tight end one.
Or tight end one. Derrick Henry flashed at the end of last season. Amari Cooper flashed at the end of last season. No consistency. Le'Veon Bell didn't even play last year. So these are not stretches. These are don't outsmart yourself. Don't get too cute. Avoid these guys.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, one thing to look for is, especially late, Raquel Armstead in Jacksonville. If you've seen some of the tape from him in practice, he is trucking guys. He's about the size of Leonard Fournette. Not quite as fast, but has a little more wiggle than Leonard Fournette does. He has been trucking even the linebackers of the Jags in practice. So, all right. Well, that is it. That is what we have for you tonight. We want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. Remember to hit that subscribe button, whether you are on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, CastBox, the billion or so places that you can find us. Spotify, I believe we're even on Spotify. So, Anchor. Follow us on Anchor. Also, if you're on Anchor and you follow us, you can leave a voice message for us to play here on the podcast. So, so please follow us, leave us a rating and review, let us know what we can do better, or just let us know that we're perfect and that you love us. We're fine with either. So, all right, guys, thank you again for listening. My name is Ryan.
This is Justin.
And we will talk to you guys later. Hey, SkullKing Nation, thank you for listening to the SkullKing Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.